Eskom has warned that it could be forced to ramp up load shedding stages should the system worsen. The power utilities spokesperson, Sikonati Manjanja, has, however, dismissed speculations of a possible stage 8. The country is currently on stage 4 load shedding up until Wednesday. This will be between the hours 5 in the morning up until midnight. The electricity giant attributing the latest round of power cuts to what it describes as an unprotected strike by some employees.
There is absolutely no reason to speculate. Eskom will inform the public as soon as anything changes and as soon as we need to issue a communication. I can confirm that there are up to 8 stages of load shedding that can be implemented. That's up to stage 8 when the need arises, and that is determined by one, the state of the power plant, the machines there, and that is determined by the availability of labor to do repairs as they are necessary, and that is determined by the availability of emergency reserves such as diesel, which we have improved the diesel levels and the ability to pump at the pumped storage capacity is good. So we are at this point at stage 4, and should that change, it can change either way. If things are going well, we will be able to reduce the stage of load shedding. But then, of course, if things really go bad, we would have to implement higher stages than we currently are at. And that decision will be made by the system operator as appropriate.
Well, on the ongoing wage strike at the power utility, Manjanja has described the strike action as sabotage.
The biggest sabotage in the first place is going against the law for a critical service such as Eskom and embark on industrial action. And the court has made a pronouncement through the interdict and said this is unlawful. Please desist from doing this. So yes, it is absolutely sabotaging a system that was already constrained. Let's be frank here. Before this industrial action, Eskom was already load shedding at stage 2 level, and we have had to increase that in order to stage 4 in order to be able to respond to any unforeseen circumstances. It is a deliberate and a man-made sabotage that we have to find ourselves at this point now. And Eskom is doing what it can, one, by engaging with the leaders of the trade unions to call their members to order. And Eskom, of course, is following the bargaining process through to the CCMA, where we will attempt to reach an end and an agreement, amicable agreement with our labor partners on this.
Well, let's continue the conversation around the Eskom wage negotiations, and that's between the power utility and its employees. The understanding is that those negotiations have deadlocked. Let's get the latest now from the National Union of Mineworkers, and they are demanding a 12% pay rise. William Mabapa is the NUM General Secretary. Mr. Mabapa, thank you very much for your time. Is that where you are sitting at the moment, 12%, or is it 10%?
Now we are sitting at 10%, and on the last round of wage negotiations, we emphasized that we are sitting at 10%, but we are still negotiable. Meaning that that is not our final demand. But unfortunately, last week we didn't find Eskom in a good mood, because while we were on our preparations to negotiate, that I'm saying the 10% was what was presented on the 14th of June, and then last week, when we go back to the wage negotiations, we had a mandate that we can still reduce that 10%. But unfortunately, we didn't do that on the day, because Eskom was very clear that they declared a dispute with labor. And then they will then inform the labor the following day to refer the matter to the CCMA.
Mr.
But I
Mabapa.
think there is something that we need to also tell everybody to know.
Yes.
Last year, Eskom did the same. While we were busy hoping that we are negotiating, Eskom also declared a dispute and referred the matter to CCMA. As we speak, the dispute that was declared by Eskom last year, not by the unions, by Eskom, is not yet resolved at the very same CCMA. Today, they referred, or let me say not today, last week, they referred the second case of the wages to the CCMA. And what must just ask a question, is the CCMA going to negotiate on behalf of Eskom, or it is Eskom that must negotiate with the employers? In our view, Eskom is abusing the process. That it is commonly known that it is the unions that are declaring dispute. But now it's fashionable for Eskom to declare dispute against the members, its own employees.
Mr. Mabapa, let me ask you this question. You are, as in your words, you are demanding 10%. Eskom says, you know very well that this power utility is heavily indebted. We survive on government bailouts. And so this utility is not making any money. If anything, it is a loss-making entity. What is your intention and your members? Is it to collapse Eskom and therefore subsequently the entire South African economy? Because that's where this is going.
Maybe there is many things that you don't know. What we must tell you is that last year, Eskom improved a tonnage of one company that supplies coal from 150 per ton to 500. Now, it is how many percentage? So, it is only Eskom can afford when it has to pay the workers. But Eskom can pay, for example, Eskom can pay IPPs. We all know when IPPs come, we said, we don't reject the IPPs, but the IPPs must find a space to compete with Eskom where possible. Not that directly Eskom must buy them. Because when Eskom buy IPPs, for example, Eskom buy those IPPs with a loss. Now, it is justifiable for Eskom to buy IPPs that they don't make any profit. In essence, Eskom must pay money to get these IPPs, these renewable energies. But what they don't have, or what will collapse Eskom, is only when the workers want the increase. So to me, I think that if you can go and look at the financials of Eskom and see how money is misused and mismanaged, I'm sure you will agree with me that Eskom, if it can manage the affairs of its finances, then Eskom can also afford an increase.
Well, if you're saying that monies are mismanaged at Eskom, who have you reported that to?
You see, for example, on the issue of the tonnages, I'm sure you know that as NUM, we opened a case on this issue. And what was even interesting, we opened a case before the deal was struck. The deal was struck while we opened a case that you increase a tonnage from 150 to 500. How do you increase a tonnage at that? Why another operator, you were operating, expecting that supplier to give you a tonnage of 150. But when you get when a new employer buys the very same mine, you then accept that you will increase that tonnage from 150 to 500. Now, it is how many percentage?
Mr. Mabapa, are your members involved in acts of sabotage against Eskom because of the unsolved wage dispute?
No. Our members, we know the processes. Our members are not sabotaging Eskom anyway. One thing that we need also to clarify here is that these employees of Eskom, they can't be a responsibility of trade unions when they've got problems and when their employer declared a dispute against them and communicated with them about this. And then we must then take the responsibility. When are these employees the employees of Eskom, and when is Eskom going to take responsibility of these employees? And we are talking about employees that everybody himself, I heard Manchancha saying that these employees are essential service. How can essential service be paid low salaries? Because in my understanding, an essential service is an important employee who must be taken care of because his service is of paramount importance. Now, it is only paramount importance when you then come to work. But when you have to get a salary increase, you are not of a paramount importance. You are a commoner. You are like anybody.
It is a double-edged sword, Mr. Mabapa, because as important as they are to the South African economy, which is what I suspect is what Mr. Manchancha speaks along here, that they are an essential service, I put it to you that if they no longer earn an income at Eskom, it is your subscription fees as union bosses that are going to suffer. So it's in your best interest to have this strike resolved. So what's the lowest you can go from that 10%?
I take it that I became honest with you that we went to the wage negotiations where on the 14th we were at 10%. Then last week when we go to the wage negotiations, we were prepared to go down. But I will take it that we are not negotiating, and I'm sure you will be open and honest with me that you can't expect to negotiate unless you did not ask Eskom from the 4% how far they can go and give the workers and resolve the strike. But from me, you can then ask me that. That is where I'm saying some of yourselves as journalists, you are unfair. The workers don't agree with the 4%. You don't ask Manchancha that the highest that you can go and resolve the strike is how much. But you then ask me, and you know that they themselves can't disclose to you, and you expect me to disclose to you. But let me disclose that, yes, we will go to 8%.
All right.
We will go to 8%.
Well,
so we are
least,
fair. But you must ask Eskom, how far can they go from the 4%? Because the 4% is not even an inflation. You are aware that inflation is 6.5. You can't give the workers 1.5 last year. This year you need to be reasonable and say you took a knock last year. Therefore, let me be reasonable and give you an inflation and maybe 1%.
All right.
Then you don't do that. You just expect these slaves to go and work. Those people have got families to take care of. And those people have got responsibilities to take off. You can't even yourself come on this news and interview me when you got 1.4. You can't.
Well, Mr. Mabapa, at least we have gotten somewhere with this conversation. 8% is what the NUM is willing to go down by. We'll find out what the other unions are proposing. At least we're getting somewhere. Thank you very much for your time. William Mabapa is the NUM General Secretary.